A Christian preacher was once asked, "Why don't you embrace Islam? What's holding you back?" He answered, "I don't believe the Qur'an to be from God." Because, as he claimed, Prophet Muhammad was supposedly manipulated by Satan himself to praise the three chief pagan Meccan goddesses. He argued that this supposedly happened when these verses were revealed in a large gathering. Have you considered Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, and Manat? These are the names of the three goddesses. According to him, this was when Satan himself cast two verses upon the Prophet. Those are the exalted Gharaniq, whose intercession is hoped for. Gharaniq means tall, majestic birds, and in this specific context, it means that those idols should be held as divine. He claimed that those supposed satanic verses were not corrected until later that day. He said something like, "If you don't believe me, just read the story in the Islamic history book itself. See here, it says Saheeh. Saheeh means authentic." And then he quoted a verse that supports his point. Whenever we sent a messenger or a prophet before you, and he tried to recite his book, Satan influenced his recitation. He claimed that this verse is a proof of his view that the Qur'an was manipulated by Satan, and this is why he is arguing that it shouldn't be trusted. And then, of course, he used this argument to invite his audience to Christianity. So, I have an idea. Instead of showing historical and textual evidence that this whole story is a fabrication, no. I will, for the sake of conversation only, agree with the Christian preacher. I will hypothetically assume that whatever he said is true, just for a couple of minutes. He said that the Qur'an cannot be trusted because two verses were influenced by Satan. And then, of course, they got corrected by Angel Jibreel later in that day. Okay, supposedly this regards the whole revelation of the Qur'an as not trustworthy, which leads to very, very important questions to the preacher making the claim himself. When I was reading the Bible, I came across this passage where a spirit tells the Lord that it would be a deceiving spirit where in the mouth of his prophet. So according to the verse, the Lord has put a deceiving spirit in the mouth of all of these prophets. The Lord has decreed a disaster on you. So my question to any preacher making this argument, does that mean that all the prophets in the Bible were deceived by this deceiving spirit? Of course, by the permission of God himself according to the verse. Does that mean that all the books in the Bible were influenced by this deceiving spirit that the Bible is talking about? And if yes, why don't you hold the Bible to your standards that you just apply to the Qur'an to reject it? Didn't you just say that you don't trust the whole Qur'an because allegedly two verses were influenced by Satan before they got corrected in the same day? Well, according to the Bible, it seems like the same scenario applies to all the revelation from all of those prophets, not just two verses. And also, there is no mention at all of them being corrected later in the same day. So tell me now, how do you reconcile this with continuing to follow the Bible? What about your standards? Also here, by the way, the verse says, if the prophet is deceived, and speaks a message, it was I, the Lord, who deceived that prophet. Who is deceiving the prophets according to the Bible? I'm confused. I mean, like, seriously, who is this verse talking about? Because I always thought that deceiving the prophets was the job of Satan, right? And the verse is saying, I, the Lord, deceived the prophet? Wait, does that mean that Satan was the one who Nah, let's not go there. According to this verse, Jeremiah said, "Oh no, Lord, God, you have certainly deceived these people in Jerusalem." He said, "You deceived me, Lord, and I was deceived." The Lord put a deceiving spirit in the mouths of the prophets. The Lord has decreed a disaster for you. Again, I always thought that the deception was the job of Satan, not God. I am genuinely asking here, are these verses using the word Lord to refer to the God of the Bible himself? Who is the God of the Bible? Can you please explain this to me? I need a Christian scholar to help me understand. I want to know who is sending this deceiving revelation to his prophets. Also in the New Testament, Paul wrote that God sends them a powerful delusion. Why does God do that? According to Paul, he wants them to believe in a lie. So can you please explain to me why did Paul accuse the Bible God of making people believe in a lie? And more importantly, how come you rejected the Qur'an because of the supposed two satanic verses that were allegedly put and corrected in the same day, while being okay with following the prophets that were deceived by their Lord according to the Bible? According to all of these verses, the Lord deceived his prophets, asked his prophets to deceive people, and the purpose was making people believe in a lie. Don't you think, according to your standards, it makes more sense to take both books or leave both books? I'm waiting for your answer. But now, enough playing along with his argument, let's break down this Satanic Verses myth. A question to whoever made the claim: where did you get this Satanic Verses story from? Is it reported in the Quran? No. Is it reported in the Hadith? Also no. He will say, I didn't find anything in the Quran or the Hadith to criticize. All were good. So I had to read around this whole library of Islamic books to find something to talk about. And I found this story in the book of the famous Islamic historian At-Tabari. And At-Tabari, of course, is a well-respected guy. Okay, yes, I agree with you. At-Tabari is a well-respected Muslim historian. But did you read the introduction that he wrote himself in his own book? No? Okay, let's read it together. He said, you will find in my book stories that I heard from some people. You might find these stories weird or horrible. I'm just letting you know that there is no authenticity to these stories whatsoever, nor do I know where they came from. I just wrote whatever I heard without any authentication. He's basically saying that his book is like YouTube. Anyone can say anything. And throughout the whole book, he keeps using words like, it was said, it was narrated by unknown people. The problem is, some people today make an assumption that Islamophobia started in our era. They think that people who are fabricating stories about the Quran and about the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, to turn people away from worshipping the one God only exist today. But this is not the case. Islamophobia actually started during the lifetime of the Prophet himself. Every prophet had sworn enemies who would fight him in every battlefront, which also includes making up lies about him. And Muslim historians reported both sides. The real authentic story of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, that all Muslims love, and the made-up stories by the Islamophobes of the past. So when you find a story written in an Islamic history book, it doesn't automatically mean that it's authentic or it's part of the religion. It's a history book. It reports both sides. Got it? Now I'm sure that some of you will point out to the word Saheeh written under the narration. See, authentic. And whoever is pointing his finger to this word is overlooking the word before it and the word after it. See, here it says Mursal, and here it says Al-Isnad. So why are you only pointing your finger to one word in the middle of three words? Is this an honest mistake or is it on purpose? Because ignoring these two words will make it seem to, people who are not familiar with the language as if it was an authentic hadith, while that's not the case. Let me explain what each one of those words mean. Sahih al-Isnad means that there is a trustworthy chain between the author of the book and the one making the claim. Mursal means that the one making the claim is not the Prophet nor the eyewitnesses. In other words, we're pretty sure that this specific person who never met the Prophet nor the eyewitnesses is the one making the claim. I will give you an example to make sure it's clear. I will now say a word. Let's say, welcome to Deen Academy. See, this is my statement. This statement that I just said is Sahih al-Isnad to me, meaning you are 100% sure that I am the one who said it. So it is Sahih to me, okay? This sentence being Sahih to me doesn't mean that it has anything to do with the Prophet or his companions or the eyewitnesses or Islam to begin with. It is just an Arabic word that describes that you are sure that I am the one who said a statement. You have an authentic chain of narrators from me to you. Got it? So yes, the author is sure that this story came from this specific person. But the chain ends here. It is not related to the Prophet or the companions or the eyewitnesses. The important question that we really need to ask is, do we have reports by the real eyewitnesses who actually were there during this event? And the answer is yes. We have 4 reports from the companions of the Prophet who were there during the event. And all of their narrations are authenticated as Saheeh to the eyewitnesses, not to the one making the claim, not Mursal. And the surprise is, none of them mention anything from the story that you are claiming to be true. Now think about this carefully. The fact that some critics today have to ignore the Qur'an and skip the Hadith and skip all the authentic narrations and dig through the non-authentic narrations from the people who never witnessed the events of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, just to find one thing to criticize. That shows you how difficult it is to find anything substantial to challenge in the authentic teachings of Islam. The disbelievers of the ancient pagan Arabs unfortunately hated having daughters. And sadly, some pre-Islamic Arabs practiced infanticides, particularly against daughters, which the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, addressed and corrected after that. But here in Surah An-Najm, Allah points out their hypocrisy, where they attributed daughters to Allah without knowledge. Allah said, "Have you considered the idols of Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, and the third one, Manat as well? Do you prefer to have sons while you attribute daughters to Allah? Then this is truly a biased distribution. These idols are mere names that you and your forefathers have made up, a practice that Allah has never authorized. They are following nothing but inherited assumptions and whatever their souls desire." Until the end of the chapter, when Allah said, "Do you find this revelation astonishing, laughing at it and not weeping from awe, while persisting in heedlessness? Instead, you should prostrate to Allah and worship Him alone." According to the narration, after the revelation of these verses, the Muslims present fell into prostration to Allah, and in response, the disbelievers also fell into prostration but to their idols. And this is the end of the authentic story reported by the 4 eyewitnesses. Also, by the way, Allah ordered them to prostrate in verse 62, while in the story that was made up by the critics, they supposedly prostrated after verse 19, and that is a clear inconsistency in the claimed story. And regarding the verse often quoted, let's read it together to see what the verse actually says. "Whenever we sent a messenger or a prophet before you, O Muhammad, and he recited our revelation, the shaitan or Satan would influence people's understanding of the recitation. But eventually, Allah would eliminate the shaitan's influence. Then Allah would firmly establish His revelation, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise." The verse is talking about people misunderstanding the revelation, not Satan making up new verses. The shaitan is trying to make people misunderstand verses. The verse actually refers to what we witnessed together in this very video. One shaitan attempt to influence people's understanding of a verse, and then this shaitan got exposed. And you all know that the word shaitan can also refer to humans, right? There is a jinn shaitan, a devil, and there is a human shaitan, an evildoer. Those seeking to misrepresent the Qur'an cannot change the words of the Qur'an itself. All they can do is misquote it or try to influence people's understanding. They always failed in the past and they will keep failing in the future. And even if you consider the second interpretation of the verse, because I know some of you will bring it up, it still doesn't support the claim. Let's read it together. According to Ibn Abbas, the wish of any prophet is for his people to believe. He was referring to those 2 words in the verse. So according to Ibn Abbas, we should translate the verse as follows. Whenever we sent a messenger and he wished for his people to become believers, the shaitan challenges his wish by, preventing them from being believers and whispering in their ear, kufr. Then Allah eliminates the influence of shaitan. And by the way, the second interpretation is much stronger because the same word, tamanna, literally means to wish or to desire. And it's even used in this verse to refer to what they wish and desire. See, or should every person simply have whatever intercessors they desire? This word. Also, by the way, this verse is talking about the prophets who came before Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. So it is unrelated anyway. Whether you take the first or the second interpretation, it's not talking about Prophet Muhammad. Hope it's clear now. When Allah approves a person to be a messenger, He appoints angel guards before and behind him. This is to ensure that the messenger fully delivers the message. This verse clearly says that Satan cannot influence the message. Also here, indeed the Qur'an is truly a mighty book. Falsehood cannot approach it from before it or from behind it. And here is a 72-page study written by the famous scholar Sheikh Al-Albani, which thoroughly addresses this claim with clear historical and textual evidence. I will leave you a link. And finally, if you heard some preachers claiming that Muslims are idol worshippers because they worship the Kaaba and Blackstone, don't worry, because I fully refuted this claim in this video. You can click up here or on the link in the description, but before you go, remember that you can help our dawah simply by helping this video reach those who need it the most. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.